be up in the air because we have these new players coming on into the roster. But with SK, there should be an expectation.
I mean, we expect, or we talk about SK coming in very prepared usually. This time, they don't have a lot to prepare for just because it's a team that no one has seen before. So I think for SK is going to be smart to just play to their strengths, and this is exactly what they're doing. They're banning the Catherine and they're picking the Idris.
Now, we want to see a really good draft coming out from Mousesports here. They have Physics on the lineup. We know that Physics is kind of this draft guru, so you expect that the draft from Mousesports should be impeccable this time around.
Yeah, hopefully that will be the case. I'm wondering if maybe the team sides were swapped there, but it looks like that was the case, and so it will be an Idris for Mousesports. So this was the pick that, you know, if you went and looked up Justman's account, the most recent games as a carry were on the Idris. It's one of the strongest picks in the current meta, so a very smart draft for them to make sure that they get that comfort pick for someone who's in an uncomfortable role.
And this is definitely, I think, a little bit of strategy coming in already because they're taking the Idris also away from Kovalfa. I wonder how much in advance they prepared this, and perhaps Physics was like, okay, Justman, you have to practice this carry because we're going to want to pick it to take it away from Kovalafar. And I think that's what happened, and it's very smart so far.
Yeah, going to be taking the Cruel off the table. Samuel locked in fairly early here for SK Gaming. This has been a pick, it's been kind of a fringe pick in the meta right now, but it has been doing very well.
This is a pick also for SK Gaming that I've talked to Tyras, and we've asked him, you know, what's your favorite hero to play? And he's a Samuel. It's just because it's a pick that you can kind of go back to regardless of what the meta is. He feels like Samuel is a hero that can fit into pretty much any composition and work extremely well. So not terribly surprising that it is a pick that SK does like to grab early when they're saving a final pick, because it could be a flex. We've seen Kovalafar take the Lance into the lane before, or it could be run as their captain.
I also like SK's draft here because so far what's happened is 4 Roam captain heroes have been denied from Mousesports: the Finn, the Lance, the Grace, and the Catherine. As a player that doesn't play the game that much, Physics, you don't have your hero pool too large. You have few characters or few heroes that you play, and especially since she's a captain main, I'm pretty sure Finn and Grace and Catherine were few of her most played heroes. So they're already taken a lot from Physics away, so now she has to flex her hero pool. She has to widen it and go for something that maybe she's not as comfortable on.
I mean, if you're a captain player, I feel like you're going to be comfortable on an Arden. Like, and that's something that should be in every single captain player's repertoire to be able to pull out, because it is one of those kind of standbys that usually doesn't get focused in the draft, but can come out with the glaive. It would make a lot of sense as well. So that is going to be the Arden pickup. Again, just very standard. If both the Catherine and the Grace, the only other one that could have been, you know, thought of would be Elvira, but I think they really want the extra durability and the frontliner because you have a Samuel on the other side who's going to be throwing out that directional damage. You stack up a whole bunch of shield and just stand in front of it and protect your carries.
Absolutely. Now, Samuel already locked in for SK. Zoro, what are you expecting them to finish this composition out with?
Honestly, they can go multiple different ways with it because they can play the Lance in lane just so that they have a lot of early game and mid game pressure combined with the Samuel. That's going to be a huge mid game power spike that they can push against the CP Idris. Then, other than that, they can put Lance in the roam and pick up something for Kovalafar. But because Idris is already away, he hasn't played too many other heroes that he's been very successful on. The Celeste, the Scarf, the Mages have not been his best picks this season so far. So I think they would do better with the last lane, but let's see what they choose. They go for the Black Feather. That's the other pick that I wanted to mention that he's played, and he's played it very well. The only thing is that Mousesports have a much stronger late game just because of the Idris, or CP Idris, and at the same time, they have a fairly decent mid game with the Glaive Afterburns and the Gauntlets coming from Arden. So I like the Mousesports draft is very well rounded. At the same time, though, SK have a huge mid game power spike when Samuel can come up to lane and siege turrets.
All right, so the situation for SK then is once they get to sort of level 8, once they get to that mid game area, they need to be in the lane making sure the siege happens.
Yeah, and they're going to have to be there even more so because early on, Mousesports should be in the lane trying to take care of this Blackfeather before he hits level 6, pick up a multiple kills on him, use the Afterburns along with the Vanguard, and you should be able to just delete this Blackfeather in the lane multiple times, but you have to be careful because of that Samuel.
All right, well, we'll see how this one is going to pan out. It's just about time to jump into our very first game of this week of the Vainglory8. It's Mouse going up against SK. Let us know who you're supporting on Twitter using that hashtag Vainglory8. Well, it's just about time to pass it over to our casters and get on into the very first game of this week. So, casters, please take it away as we head onto the Halcyon Fold.
Bring Europe home today, and we got Mouse versus SK as our first matchup here. SK on top of the board in Europe, Scoundrel, looking to make a bid for that world spot at the end of the season.
They're certainly looking like the team to take it away, but what a shake-up here. I'm the Doom going into lane with the CP Idris. Dzix coming in, obviously, as the captain role, the drafting expert, but also as you have got plenty of stories I'm sure you could relay over the course of forever. I've got quite a lot of experience in the high-level European solo queue ladder as well, but SK off to a very, very aggressive start here, trying to push advantages against a team that might not be quite on top of their form right now, Darcy.
Right, no, that's fair enough to say. Tricky, no longer in that carry position. It's going to be I'm the Doom taking that helm. In this match here, perhaps we see Justban shift over if things don't go so well in game one here. Mouse really trying to figure themselves out at the moment, and like you mentioned, they brought Physics in, who I guess the rest of the community will know as Cloud9's drafting queen. This is her competitive debut on the Vainglory8 stage.
Absolutely, and if I were to give a hyper carry to any member of the Mousesports lineup and say I trust you to mechanically play this incredibly well, it would be I'm the Doom. I'm the Doom probably is one of the best mechanical players we have in the VG8 right now. He's very, very good in that aspect, all coming from that status that he had in the previous seasons of a CP Kestrel one trick. He's now expanded that repertoire, put a lot of time and effort into increasing his hero. Looks really, really good. But Kavalafar's one of his old favourites here, Dalsy, on his Black Feather.
Yeah, his Black Feather last week we saw against Mouse, and it was just phenomenal. In fact, against G2 it was, and just destroyed Hundor, who we've seen time and time again put G2 in his backpack and carry them on home. It's been incredible to see Kavalafar, I think, step up to a whole new level of play. One thing about Kavalafar that people will say is that he's got the brains, but does he have the mechanical skill? This season he's certainly stepped up. As a team fight breaks out, I'm the Doom. Should be able to escape here. Justman will tank up Tyrus's Malice and Verdict, but Physics looking like she's very low. She might be able to escape this one just about with the healing flask, get the health that she needs to stay alive.
This is something that Samuel excels at, by the way, and it's a reason why I thought he's likely going to be more popular than he actually is that ability to put pressure. Ooh.
Going to be Kavalafar in trouble, actually. Does be able to get away, but Tyrus, the Malice and Verdict, this is scary. Physics with the body block will go down. First blood going to go over to Tyrus.
And Tyra is, like you said, on one of his favourite heroes. He said it himself. Munchables was talking about it as well. He likes to just default to Samuel when he gets the option. He was kind of made his name on Samuel, Dalsy. Like, him playing Samuel was what kind of gave him that title of one of the rookies coming in, one of the best rookies coming into the VG8 this season in Europe. And Samuel was kind of what he etched his namesake with. So back on that hero now in this current update. And I was just mentioning that drifting Dark Malice and Verdict is a very good way, especially when you just walk into lane, to burn that early sustain of the healing flask, and you can just come back over and over again, siege the enemy lane and siege the enemy turret so easily because of what Samuel brings to the table.
Yeah, no, me and you, when we were discussing 2.8 before it kind of hit the shelves, were almost convinced that we would see Samuel head up into the lane as a CP lane carry due to his ability to continuously put pressure on people and chunk out health. Now, we haven't quite seen that in 2.8, and I'm not quite sure we will, but it's great to see that he hasn't been forgotten in the meta, and as the weeks go on 2.8 here in the Vainglory8, we see junglers picking up more and more often.
Yeah, I think with Samuel specifically, as we've got Mouse trying to defend quite aggressively. Their first turret already down to a very low amount of HP. And this is what I'd like to see people do with Samuel, by the way, Dalsy. You excel at around the 4 to 6 minute mark of just being a monstrous turret-taking machine. Your siege is incredible. And that's where you really want to use Samuel, too. You pop that Drifting Dark, siege that turret, take it down as quickly as you physically can, especially now that it's weaker than it used to be. And I do like to see SK trying to do that as much as they can here. Tyra's got that level advantage right now, really using it as well with some spikes, with crystal bits, heavy prisms, and the eclipse prisms sitting in there as well.
I wonder how much Mouse will invest into I'm the Doom is the question. Physics loves the hyper carry of a team. If you feel like you're behind, funnel that gold into someone who can carry you. I'm the Doom will have to step up if that's going to be the case here, as Tyra's really looking to take down this turret. Everyone on Mouse very, very low. There is no fountain available yet from this Arden either. And this is going to be the turret going down at the 5 minute mark. SK just consistently chipping the block.
What a way to play Samuel early on here. That's exactly as I was saying what I like to see. And SK have already opened up the map here against Mousesports, looking like they are trying to solidify their place as that best team in Europe right now. Remember, there is only one European slot on the line for Worlds. So only one European team can make it to the world stage right now. SK look like the favorites to do so, and when they play like this, you can see why they look like the favorites, Dowsey. You were mentioning Kavalafar. People mentioned that he's got incredible game brain mechanics, but has he got the skill as he goes in?
Justman just immediately taken away by Tyras there. All just set up due to a bit of over-aggression coming out of Mouse. I'm not quite sure they've figured out their place in this game just yet. Look at the gold, it's only 3,000, and you may look at that with the naked eye and go, okay, 3,000 at 6 minutes, that's a fairly decent lead, but what does that actually mean for power? It means that Mouse can't teamfight, especially with a CP Idris, and look, they're looking to contest this Crystal Sentry, but can they do so is the question. Hegman may go down here. Oh, and Oblivion puts them all to sleep. Physics will jump in to try and secure that. Doom actually gets it with the Chakram. A 1-for-1 trade, not bad. Captain for captain here. Can Mouse get out alive is the question. Justman. Over the wall he goes. Kavalafar charging forward as Tyra's going to cut him off. He's trapped between a rock and a hard place, and Tyra's will happily keep him standing. Kavalafar will knock him down. It's 4-1 to SK.
Aggressive maneuvers already coming out, putting pressure on the late game scaling the CP Idris. They have been heavily trying to sort of aggress onto the Mousesports side of the map, and I really like that simply because you know that when you go up against the CP Idris, you're on a timer. Now, Dowsey, the CP or Idris fanatic that you are, the Frostburn comes out. Now, this is an everlasting debate. North America thinks it's bad, Europe thinks it's good. I think it has situational purposes. Against a Blackfeather and this kind of composition, I mean, what do you think of this? Because I am one of the biggest backers of a Frostburn on CP Idris if the situation calls for it. I don't like it here. I really don't.
I actually think it's really uncharacteristic of I'm the Doom, who has multiple times in Twitter chains towards me said that Frostburn sucks and Shadowglass is the only way to play CP Idris. So, what's going on? I don't know. I don't think it works into Blackfeather like you're mentioning. He has 3 movement abilities, 2 rows offensives, and a Faint of Heart, meaning that he can just, if he gets slowed down and his movement speed is slower, he just uses one of them to kind of make up for it. The only thing it can assure is that Tyra's in the Drifting Dark is perhaps threatened to leave his Drifting Dark if his Chakram is flying at him, and it slows him down and the Drifting Dark kind of goes under his feet. That's the only thing I can think of.
That's a slim line of, of reasoning, right? Like, if I were playing against Samuel, I'd be more concerned with trying to burst him than I would be trying to slow him down.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing for me is the fact that it's I'm the Doom doing it. After so many times insisting that Shadowglass is the best way to play CP Idris, picking up a Frostburn here, it seems weird. That's all I can say.
It's less weird maybe that he's picked up the alternating current second. I know that's pretty standard on a lot of Idrises, but maybe he's looking to go for the basic attack kiting focus build. I still don't think it's great, but there is some theory there, maybe against the Lance, maybe against Kavalafar once he's used those movement speed and gap closing abilities. But, you know, like I said, I think it's suboptimal for maybe what you want to achieve as Justman again, getting picked off right at the front here. He's been a punching bag. Mousesports have really struggled, and here comes the second tier turret under siege by SK.
One thing is Doom actually going to get impaled here. Knocked up against the wall, but Justman disengaging Hegman. One thing I really dislike about Arden is if you fall behind any which way, levels 1 to 6 on Arden, and the rest of your team is behind, you don't have many catch-up ways to save your teammates, as we see Justman get just taken on down here. This turret will fall as well. Physics now, she has the gauntlet available, but that can only really be used defensively at this point, you feel, for Mouse, as SK have such a power lead at this point until we see that broken myth finish for Doom. I doubt Mouse realistically want to take teamfights.
I really like the Arden CP Idris combination because CP Idris really benefits from movement speed, and obviously Vanguard is fantastic for that, helps him kite, helps him get into position. But I just feel that Arden is less adaptable than Lance. I just think Lance is one of the most adaptable captain heroes in the game right now. He has both, well, to sake of the meme, he can protect, he can attack, you know. He's got lots of facets to his kit. And I think I think just being good at Lance, it just makes you a very powerful hero on this current update and in this current meta. Just because of how good he is at setting up early game, how good he is at peeling in the late game as well. Lance is just kind of one of these all-round captains that's got a bit of everything, and I think he's just incredibly strong at this point in time. And you can see Hegman, who has been, by the way, I don't know how much we've discussed this, I'm sure it's had plenty of discussion over the last few weeks. What an excellent addition to the roster this has been for SK. Previously known as Redaption, has been such a great addition for these guys. It's really given them a boon that I think they needed after that Unified Western Live Championships performance.
I have to admit, when I saw the announcement that Hegman would be joining SK, I was a little bit skeptical. As you mentioned, formerly known as Redaption, played for Cyclone. The Voldemar Radha combination, which was, a team that had many ups and downs, and I didn't really understand why SK would favor Redaption comparatively to other captains, perhaps. But I think he's really been able to shine in this roster of SK Scoundrel, really being able to show what he's about, what he knows, and how he can adapt and really provide what his teammates need. And when you've got the likes of Tyras and Kavalifar by your side, there's a lot to work with there. Very adaptable players with, I think, a huge scope of possibilities.
I think what you were saying is completely correct there, Dalsy. Redaption didn't really strike as anything incredible out of the box. He didn't really sound like this guy that was an up-and-coming megastar, but has some reason the environment in SK has just proven to be such a growing ground for him, and it's been like an incredible sort of process to see this guy who previously was nothing special turn into one of the main reasons that SK have really found a revitalization. And I think in general Kavalifar and Tyras have been playing a level up from what we've seen from them, and I think it's part due to the addition of Hegman.
Mouse here, trying to defend their choke point turret. I'm the Doom does have that broken myth. It's stacking up. 3 stacks currently. Is this the time for Physics to pull the trigger and go for a gauntlet in, try and trap up Tyras, or will it all just be Mouse biding time, looking to scale up? Justman, he's split from the team. SK just constantly trying to put I'm the Doom under pressure, but a great Shroud Step will get him to safety here. Here comes the Malice and Verdicts. The turret will be okay for now. There's the gauntlet laid down to protect it by Physics. Mouse will be able to protect it for now. Those broken myth stacks have reset, so there's no real team fight available for Mouse at this point. And SK, they're happy to continue this. Every time a wave crashes in, Tyras has that Drifting Dark available to power up his Malice and Verdicts, and this may be Mouse in trouble. Physics taking a lot of damage on the front line. Justman as well. I'm the Doom doing his best to try and keep them all back with those auto attacks, the alternating current. And the broken myth stacked up to 7 as we speak. Mouse, I just don't feel have the damage, and they've already used their gauntlet, which means that engage here is very difficult for them. And Hegman wants to be aggressive. Look at that. Everyone is in trouble here as Doom trying to escape with the Shimmer Strike. Justman will be able to get the healing tree, and Kavalifar goes very low. Fountain comes out. This might be Kavalifar going down. No, never mind. Oblivion goes out, and Physics is put to sleep. I'm the Doom on the back line. An impaled next 2, and that's going to be everyone falling on the side of Mouse. An ace for SK.
And they're going to push through and at least get the choke point turret here. A little bit late on the Crucible. I know Physics will be kicking herself for that. Gets slept up. Not that I think it mattered positionally. I think she was caught out just a little bit there. But SK have looked great from the get-go. They're looking to push on to these Vayne Crystal turrets. They'll get one at the very least. Another wave of ace minions are going to move through. And the Doom now.
Kavalifar in a bit of trouble. Has a Rose offensive. Hegman roots up I'm the Doom. I'm the Doom actually looks like he might just fall. Finds the kill before he does so. It is going to be a 2v2, but Justman only has 2 offensive items to his name. It doesn't really have the shielding necessary to be able to take on Tyras. In fact, Justman's just picked up a life spring for himself. He's going to be going towards a second fountain for the team. They are truly trying to hyper carry as we get the replay, Scoundrel.
That's crazy. I mean, let's have a look at the what just happened there again. It's set up by Hegman, and some of these impales have been missing almost every time.
We've got a team fight actually. Tyras is in trouble here. You can see in your bottom right. He just goes down. Hegman now has to escape. Hegman should just be falling here. Justman should be able to pick up the kill. Just trying to get that gold over to him. I'm the Doom's actually coming down. They might even give it to I'm the Doom. If they're hyper carrying this Idris, then he's the perfect choice for it, and it will be the Chakram picking up the kill for the side of Mouse.
And they might now be able to collapse and get this gold mine. 10k or over gold behind. Actually, they're just sort of up to 8k now, but with the Kraken spawning, this is an opportunity for Mouse right now as Kavalafar is forced to Rose offensive as well, use that Rose defensive, as we like to call it colloquially. And Kraken's
actually starting this up here. This is desperation from Mouse. Going to be very risky. I'm the Doom on the backline. There it is. Kavalafar knocked in. He's going to feint apart away, but here comes Tyrus with that drifting dark. It's going to be Physics leading the charges. I'm the Doom puts it down. That this time the Oblivion's brought. This time Tyrus is dead, and it is going to be a double kill going over to Doom. Eggman comes in, but it's not enough at this point. He gets knocked back. Maybe it's just a triple coming through. It's definitely an ace. Mao's desperation play works out. They're going to get turrets and a Kraken.
Oh my word, SK, a little bit overestimating the power of their ability to stop Mouse from doing this Kraken. They're going to get 2 turrets, they're going to get the Kraken, a massive amount of comeback gold in their back pocket as well. And I'm the Doom. Often we talk about a point in the game where CP Idris can come online and start to carry things back in his favor. That point in the game is often broken myth, and especially with the 3-item backing behind it. So when CP Idris gets broken myth, that's the point in the game where you have to turn around and say, okay, now we have to start to worry about this. We have to have a proper game plan approaching these fights. Everything kind of has to be a bit more focused than it was previously. And I just got the feeling, we were looking at the replay previously, didn't get to see the whole fight. It just felt SK were approaching these team fights a little bit sloppily. They weren't really thinking about how they were doing it. They were just saying, oh, we're really far ahead. We can do it however we like from this point forward. And Hegman have been missing those crucial impales to start with. And it all felt a little bit haphazard from SK in general when they were approaching these team fights. But now it's at the point where we're 4 items on CP Idris. This is late game CP Idris online. I don't think SK ever wanted to see this part of the game, Dowsy.
No, not at all. This Kraken may be taken down quickly, and a Gauntlet will go down, but knocked back. I'm not quite sure how.
It didn't go over the wall. It was an attempted Gauntlet over the wall, yeah.
There we go. So the Kraken will find a 3rd turret for this push. In theory, for SK, that is not enough done to stop the Kraken from being a great investment for Mouse, since they got 2 turrets off the ace as well as a 3rd with the Kraken. Mouse have just riveted themselves back into a position where they can fight. Like you mentioned, Eve of Harvest was bought in 1 purchase. There were no components. It was just a straight up tier 3 buy for I'm the Doom. And they are truly looking to hyper carry I'm the Doom here. 2 fountains. Justman will pick himself up an Aegis as well. Unless it's a Crucible.
Crazy.
And if it is a Crucible, that's insane.
Hegman's gone for a Shiver Steel, by the way. Did receive some buffs moderately recently, but it's not an item that you see people pick up on sort of frequent occasion, especially on a lance. Definitely gives you the impression that slowing down a target, especially that CP Idris for Kavalafar, long basic attack range on lance, remember, he's got a fairly long stabbing lance that he can throw out. If he lands that on CP Idris, even with just 1 Shiver Steel proc, that might be enough for Kavalafar. So you get the impression this is a big setup from Hegman to allow Kavalafar to get into position. The echo's there from Hegman as well, so he's going to have either a double Impale or a double Githian Wall. But this game has suddenly got a lot closer. I love the purchase of a Crucible and a Fountain from Justman. This is the first time that we have really seen a team go all in on 1 carry, Dowsy. Often you say hyper carry and you have like a semi-utility jungler like Cruel, but he doesn't really build like another captain. This is basically Justman playing captain.
Mouse had done this multiple times. They did it on Fortress, it was CP Doom. Basically just captain jungle. There's a Gauntlet, that's beautiful. It's gonna give I'm the Doom the space he needs. Maybe not, he's stunned up, he's in trouble, but he's gonna get the Fountain. He gets out of the fight. Physics is put to sleep. Both fountains were used at the same time, Scoundrel. Perhaps not what was necessary for Mouse, but at the same time, it's perhaps the reason. I don't know how Fountain works. Does it stack when you get healed by one and then the other immediately, or is it just...
You're asking me a question that I would just be guessing at, but I get the feeling that... it might not be as effective at the used at the same time, but remember, I think basically what you'll have is that obviously Fountain works better the lower HP you are, so you just lose a bit of effectiveness of Fountains. This
is not good for Mouse. Perhaps they can turn it around. It's I'm the Doom left alone. Never mind, he's rooted, trying to escape here. The first goes down, it's Justman. A second for Kavalafar, and I'm the Doom will be the 3rd. A triple kill comes through for SK. And without their cooldowns, they just step too far forward, Mouse in the jungle. Now SK to push the base.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mouse, they walked right into Lance's death trap there, into the corridor with no fountains, no cooldowns. They were asking to lose that teamfight. Dalsy SK, after a little bit of a hiccup, are looking to clean this first game up.
Makes a lot of sense that Mouse, with the loss of Tricky, decide to run a double captain composition. Physics and Justman, it's their main roles. Unfortunately for I'm the Doom, just wasn't enough to give him the power necessary to pick up game 1 here. SK bring it back at Scoundrel. We'll have to see how Mouse are able to recover from it as well, considering it didn't go the way they wanted. Let's throw it back to our desk to give us some further analysis.
Well, what a way to start the week coming out from Mousesports there. Honestly, SK looked like they had it in the bag. Mousesports managed to come back on into the game, though. They didn't take it in the end. SK did manage to get a great final team fight. But honestly, commendations to Mousesports for actually pulling themselves back in, because they were like 10,000 gold behind.
Yeah, this was a lot closer than it maybe should have been. I mean, it was SK were dominant throughout the early to mid game. They had that massive mid game power spike, but then all of a sudden, CP Idris comes online, gets the Broken Myth, and starts doing a ton of damage.
I mean, credits to I'm the Doom, because he stayed even, and he stayed even in CS and in gold with Kvalifar, even though the team was losing, even though they were losing so many objectives. So credits to him to be able to do that, so that when they got to the later game, they had some strengths to fight back with.
All right, let's take a look at how this game played out as we start off with around 6 minutes into the game, SK being very aggressive and taking control of the map by taking a sentry.
Yeah, taking down the sentry just very early on, 6 minutes in, they're already trying to force these fights, and they know that they just have a stronger comp at the moment, and they know that the Idris hasn't come online, so they're trying to just find as many opportunities as they can.
Exactly, they're just playing to their draft, and they're playing to their win condition of needing to play aggressive, needing to get advantages throughout the early and mid game. SK did it very well, and they took turrets by 6 minutes. The first turret was gone. They had a 3k gold lead. They took crystal miners, so they just played the early game and mid game very well.
Yeah, just getting that snowball rolling and making sure to also use that lance to great effect as well, making sure to lock people down. Now, we have an ace that came out from SK Gaming around 14 minutes into the game, and this was them really starting to solidify the fact that they were in control of the game.
Yeah, and this was when they were trying to siege the second turret. After it was down, they're trying to siege the third turret. You see a lot of back and forth coming from Mousesports, and this is what they were able to fight back, because I'm the Doom had picked up his Broken Myth on CP Idris. The only thing is they made a mistake of coming out too far away from their turret. You can win the team fight against SK, but only if your turret is there to help you. Once you're too far away from it, SK won the team fight.
Yeah, and actually that was a really nice bait from SK as well, because they kind of pretending that Tyrus is in trouble, or that Kvalifar's in trouble there, they still had the fountain though.
Yeah, and it was also almost disastrous for Mouse, because SK had a minion wave with them at the time, so they were able to push in, get a lot of work done. We actually thought maybe that was going to be the end of the game, but Mousesports was able to get back up and stave off the crystal going down with a really nice pick on the Kvalifar. And this is, again, once the Broken Myth is out, all of a sudden CP Idris becomes this massive threat that you have to worry about.
And that single pick for Mouse there led to an ace coming out a little bit later on into the game and reopened the game for them, because honestly, like you just said, we thought they were going to win off of that push. But if we take a look at the next replay, this is Mousesports really managing to pull themselves back into this one and managed to get a Kraken as well.
I mean, it's also SK getting a little bit overconfident and perhaps underestimating Mousesports too much, because Hagman was already dead, and you see Kvalifar going in by himself at the beginning. 50% of his health was already down, and they were still fighting 2v3. So it's expected that Mousesports can take that. SK playing a little bit overzealous perhaps. They are thinking that they can do more than they actually can. And then, as you can see, they took the kills. They were able to take 2 turrets off of the ace minions too, and then get Kraken and push with it. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do too much with the Kraken.
Yeah, there was kind of an awkward situation where it maybe could have been more, but didn't quite work out for them. And then the final replay is obviously SK managing to find themselves a great fight towards the late game stages. And this was kind of a sad moment for Mousesports fans.
Yeah, it was a little worrisome because they didn't get onto I'm the Doom right away, but fortunately for them, the reflex block's just not quite coming out at the right time. I'm the Doom does get impaled and then stunned by the Githian wall. And while that's going on, Kvalifar is just mowing through Justman and Physics. And I want to talk about the build from Justman a little bit while we have the chance. You can take Justman out of the captain role, but you can't take the captain role out of Justman. Going for a fountain and a crucible on the glaive. it makes sense in a protect the carry composition, but unfortunately in that last fight they just weren't able to actually protect the carry.
Also, a bit like that, what it does is it makes you very squishy because it actually doesn't give you that much defense. It gives you a lot of utility and gives defense to your teammates with the heals and the barriers, but yourself is not as tanky as an Aegis, perhaps. And other than that, the alliance going on Hegman. I'm very happy that they did give Hegman last match after his performance last week. So it's a smart draft coming out of SK, and choosing to give the last to Hegman rather than play it on lane is a very smart choice too.
All right, let's start to talk about game number 2, as that's where we're going to be heading now. Now, looking towards this draft, obviously, we've seen the priorities coming out from these two teams. CP Idris was a huge priority for Mousesports going into that one. Are we expecting a similar thing on the B side, or is SK going to change everything up just to try and deny that?
I would expect a very similar thing. I mean, Mousesports, they're very much going to want to try and, I would assume, stick to this protect the carry type of gameplay. And unfortunately for them, this is something that's cost them in the past, of trying to just set up I'm the Doom to be able to hard carry games. And if there isn't someone else that can step up and make plays if I'm the Doom gets focused, or if he gets caught out at all, then the team composition just collapses around them.
All right, well, the Idris was banned away immediately from SK Gaming. That's going to be countered with a Catherine ban, and means that Grace will go into the hands of Hegman.
I mean, so here's something. SK's draft is actually kind of predicted right now just because of Kvalifar's hero pool is limited. It's Idris, Blackfeather, and Lance, the heroes that he's been successful on so far this season. So with Idris already being off the table, Mouse could draft very specifically so that they deny him the other two. Had they gone, I mean, they can still do it. This is Blackfeather is a very good ban. If they pick Lance, for example, when it's their turn again, that's removing all of Kvalifar's successful heroes so far in the season. It's just teams need to pay more attention to those patterns that come out of teams in drafts and try to abuse them.
And also, I think it's important to mention that Physics has actually been practicing a lot of Lance. That was one of the captains she really focused on getting ready for this week. So that could lend to a very nice draft coming out for Mousesports. Obviously, SK already has the Grace locked in, but we know that SK likes to flex with those captain roles. So Finn going to be taken off the table here, and that leaves Mousesports open for the next pick.
Yeah, and like Arakizora was saying, you can see there on your screen now, Kvalifar, most played heroes are the Idris, Scarf, Blackfeather, but the Scarf has not been that great for him thus far this season, so he's been much better on these sort of melee bruiser type heroes, and it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to change it up on the side of SK now, plus that Blackfeather ban that Mousesports made earlier in the draft, it's also just the hard counter to the Celeste that they were able to take off the board while still getting that incredible late game focused hero. So it'll be interesting to see if they do continue to stick with I'm the Doom in the lane with the Celeste. I would expect that to be the case just because he's so much more familiar with being in a carry position than someone like Justman would be. But thus far, through the first half of the draft, Mousesports has done incredible.
Yeah, I mean, SK also have multiple options here. They can actually go for the Vox Fortress comp, which is a good flex because it's a generally really strong composition. Other than that, they can play the Grayson lane. On top of it, they can also just pick up the Scarf. Oh, is that a pedal weapon power lane?
We'll see. I mean, SK has been doing a very good job of picking up on the other region's metas and adapting it very quickly, and it looks like it very well could be. Kvalifar with a weapon pedal. Again, we've known him for playing the unconventional picks. I don't know if this can even be called an unconventional pick at this point, but it would make sense.
To be honest, knowing SK, this is going to end up being a captain petal, and it's going to be the weapon Grayson lane. No, in all seriousness, though, the weapon petal has been sneaking into the meta. We've seen it been very successful over in North America. It was banned in the finals in North America last week. It's an incredibly strong pick.
And the reason why that is because I've talked about it last week. Her B, if you overdrive it, it gives you an increase of 20% on your weapon power output, damage output. On top of it, it increases your range on your auto attacks. So it's a pick that you can play around so well in the team fight. You can just keep using your B over and over, a trampoline, and you can keep on having that buff consistently and trying to deal with the Celeste range that's going to be coming out.
Absolutely. Look at this composition from Mousesports, though. Definition of a protect the carry composition. A lot of trust going into the hands of I'm the Doom right here. Now, obviously, we talked about Justman was going to be the carry. That was not the case in game number 1. They switched it even more around. So I'm the Doom was the carry, Justman in the jungle, and Physics in captain. So nobody actually on their default role for this team. They did a great job last time, though, and it was trying to protect Justman in that carry position. They've now built a composition around that.
Yeah, and I mean, it was one of those situations where the change likely came about just because of like results in scrims or practices, just feeling more comfortable with this setup.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you feeling about this one?
I think it's going to be very even in terms of draft, and most likely SK will take it just because of superior gameplay.
All right, we'll see if they can bring this one into the net. It could be a 2-0 for SK. It could be going to 3 games. Let us know on social media what you want to happen. Hashtag Vainglory8. It's time to pass it over once again, though, to Dowsy and Excoundrel to get into game number 2.
All right, let's get on to the Halcyon Fold Excoundrel. SK 1-0 up, looking to make it another week of a perfect run to finals once more. We'll have to see if they can do it here. Mouse, almost with a comeback. They've got another hyper carry Doom composition. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, I mean, this time they've gone full double captain. No questions asked. Justman probably going straight into the weapon power route a little bit as Hegman over...
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, well, he's rooted anyway, so, like, EU Treants for the win, right?
I mean, they missed their entire set of skill shots, but they killed him anyway, because the Treant helped out because, it's EU.
Basically what they did, they cut off his route out of the Treant route.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a way of saying you can't actually back out if we focus it here, but Treant did them a bit of service as well. As Kavalifar going for the weapon power petal, something that we've seen a little bit off here. Physics has been aggressive, and Hegman doesn't look like he will be able to do much to help out as Tyrus now gets locked into a little bit of a duel.
He is in a lot of trouble here. He's going to have to pop that healing flask. The rest of the team coming down. Justman trying to finish off this Treant, and it is going to be secured for the team. Goes over to Doom, and Justman gets that sigil. And a core collapse will halt up Tyrus to make sure he can't chase too deep. Now, their fronts are coming up, which means that Justman may lose out on some gold here. Tyrus and Hegman are rotating into the backs. There they are, spawning as well. SK going to steal these away, so perhaps Physics playing with her food almost, with stopping Tyrus from backporting, has actually hurt Mouse a little bit.
Yeah, as Justman doesn't quite land the Impale, but the Githimul does come through, and Hegman and Tyrus now have been baited into staying around, and it is going to be a 2 versus 1 here.
He's in a bit of trouble, has been forced away. Hegman going to secure that Treant for Tyrus there. And so Mouse losing out on their backs, but they've managed to get up on gold here. The first blood comes through, and I'm the Doom in the lane has a substantial lead over Kavalifar's weapon power petal.
Yeah, in general, I think Physics came into the lane very, very aggressive. Lane dominant captain is Lyra. She can put pressure on with that heroic perk. Obviously, also able to sustain I'm the Doom as well. Not that you imagine Kavalifar's going to be looking to take any trades this early on. Kavalifar, you play Weapon Power Petal in this specific scenario. So Weapon Power Petal is not a pick that you can pick blind and just say, hey, I'm going to carry the game with Weapon Power Petal. Weapon Power Petal, in this particular circumstance, is kind of like a counter to the likes of Scarf and Celeste. What you can do is you build very much like a Weapon Power Kestrel, heavy critical strike, and it's all about the burst damage that you get after you use your Trampoline. Trampoline gives you that extended range, it's longer than Baron, and then, as I said, I'm the Doom literally forced to run away. Again, SK going heavy on the early turret siege. Use that Trampoline Dowsy with the extra weapon power that you get, the 20% extra weapon power, and the extended range, and you basically look for an opening to try and burst down I'm the Doom in that small amount of time that you have all those added bonuses on your weapon power kit. So it's all about finding the right opportunity as weapon power petal. But if you miss that, put yourselves in no man's land. Celeste will be able to punish you very, very easily.
And you think that weapon power Lance would be able to do just that as well. Justman is connecting these impales, the amount of burst that can come out of a weapon power Lance, especially onto a target that, like you mentioned, builds very much like a weapon power Kestrel. So that is lots of crit, no defense. And a Lance will burst through whatever defensive, if defensives are built, that this petal has. She's already got one of the lowest base helps in the game. And so it's a feast or famine style that SK are adopting.
Yeah, so interesting you mentioned base health. Kestrel's got a slightly higher starting base health than the likes of Kestrel, but she actually has the lowest scaling base health in the game, I believe. So scaling up to the top level, she has the lowest base health in the game. And that makes her a very, very easy target as Justman takes so much damage here.
Eggman chomps on in, able to knock up Physics. I'm the Doom will push everyone back. A Minion Candy also used onto the lane. Does a lot of work for Mouse here. They're trying to counter this sieging style. Eggman dives on top, has that weapon blade in his inventory, makes So this grace to be very obnoxious in the early game. Physics doing her best to keep I'm the Doom alive with these heals. Opting in for the Fountain early. Physics does this whenever she feels she needs a huge burst heal on the Lyra in a scenario where she feels like her carry may fall if she doesn't have the Fountain. And so quite clearly Mouse are respecting the ability that the weapon power Petal brings to the table.
Yeah, I think there is a case for Crucible early on against Samuel, but honestly, I just prefer, in a lot of situations where you have a hyper carry, I just prefer Fountain early on, because one of the main areas of the game that you're going to lose, if you have a hyper carry composition, one of the main areas of the game that you're going to struggle in general, is the early to mid game, because that's where often you try and seek advantages versus hyper carry compositions. So by having Fountain, you just help alleviate some of the problems that you might have in the mid-game team fights that might not go your way before, especially I'm the Doom hits level 8 or before he hits certain item spikes. So I just think this is a safer build in general, as Just Man takes a lot of damage.
Just about survives. Solar Storm actually comes back, and that's a return kill. Going over to I'm the Doom. Baited on in, and Physics held onto the Fountain as well. They've got that cooldown, which Hegman doesn't. This is a huge window of opportunity that Mouse have ahead of them. Maybe difficult to find anything for it, though, against this Samuel.
Yeah, he's able to just sit there and clear waves. And very early on in the game, so Cavalifar already up and fighting. Invests in a reflex block early on, I think a sensible decision. But you could see the kind of power that the Celeste has versus the power Petal. You know, if you can land those ultimates, one of the lowest base healths in the game, it's going to chunk through her. And Cavalifar didn't have the shielding to help out either. One of the other things to mention is that traditionally CP Petal has always been pretty terrible against the likes of Celeste, just because of that outrange. You know, you can clear the Munions very quickly post level 8, you outrange her, Supernovas hit like a truck. So again, it's very difficult to pilot a weapon power Petal in these kind of scenarios. You have to be really picking your moments correctly, and against the Lance and a Lyra, they limit the directional opportunities that you have so much.
We're going to see Mouse push back here. This Samuel doing a lot of work to Doom on the back line. Fountain will come out this time to heal on up. Mouse should be fairly safe to just back away here. Their turret, fairly healthy, meaning they can rotate up. And oh, Tyra's going to take a Solar Storm to the face. The Divine Intervention will be popped on top of him, but here comes Just Man, looking for Hegman, trying to keep him away from his team, whilst Doom with the extended range on that Heliogenesis pushes back everyone else. Physics able to get away. Cavalifar in a lot of trouble, but the Fountain is there. Is it enough to keep him alive? It is, and then a sleep will come through. It's one kill coming out for Cavalifar. Mouse just locked up on their turret, unable to help out. There's going to be this wave push on him, but the minion candy is there to help out, and the wave has been cleared very quickly. This turret won't take too much damage.
Yeah, and you'll see the rest of SK will back off here. I think they were hoping to use that Drifting Dark, Malice and Verdict to punish the lack of Fountain and maybe try and get some siege onto this turret here. Tyrus and Hegman are actually going to stick around and just continue to apply pressure to I'm the Doom, trying to prevent his back or his item shops, I guess, especially since he doesn't have the Eve of Harvest finished just yet. So not a bad move. But it's going to be resulting in I'm the Doom heading back as Just Man heads to lane anyway, and actually Cavalifar now in the back lines, taking those back camps without sharing them with Tyrus, as Tyrus takes away some of the lane minion gold. Cavalifar very close to finishing up that Tornado Trigger, which is going to be that next spike for him, looking for the burst damage those critical strikes will provide.
So quite clearly SK wanting to get this weapon power Petal to her 4-item point as quickly as possible so it can have that huge impact. Impale does land onto Cavalifar. Is Hegman keeping Justman locked down, and Justman is very low. Heal comes down onto Cavalifar, but he is taking damage over the wall from Justman. I'm the Doom as well. This turret taking a bit of a beating, but so far so good. Mouse weathering the storm, and they have that Lyra to heal them back up. If Doom can place down these Heliogenesis and slow Tyra's up, it makes things easier. Justman does need to hit those impales. Tyra's in trouble though. Never mind. He will just fall immediately. That's going to be Hegman locked up against the wall. I'm the Doom has hit this point on this CP Celeste that becomes so obnoxious to deal with. The extended range, the chronograph and inventory makes things very easy for I'm the Doom to just be a bully in the lane, and Cavalifar's feeling the hurt.
Yeah, and actually forces the Fountain from Hegman as well. I'm still... I've said this a lot when I've seen Weapon Power Petal come out on the Halcyon Fold. I completely understand where it comes from. In the late game, I've seen it work, but it's just so difficult, and especially against this kind of composition that the Mouse have got. You've got appealing. Justman takes a lot of. Oh, that's a lot of damage onto Cavalify. The Crucible gets forced as well. You know, you've got a lot of peeling for Iron Doom. You've got Bright Bulwark, you've got Heal, you've got the Impale to slow down the advance, you've got the Githian Wall as well. I mean, where is the Weapon Power Petal? You're looking for a very slim area of opportunity to actually get onto that Celeste as Hegman.
Oh no, everyone gets put to sleep. That could have been Hegman falling there. Physics doesn't have a Crucible yet, so no way to stop that from coming down. Unfortunate timing for Mouse.
Absolutely, that was really nicely placed. Oblivion, though, from Tyra's, saving the life. You can phrase it either way. You can phrase it as unfortunate timing for Mouse, but also really nice play from Tyra's. Either way, SK escape with a sliver of HP. And Cavalify, Tyra's, and Haken still in fighting shape. They have the gold lead by about 200, despite the kill disadvantage that they sit at. But I'm the Doom very quickly scaling up to that monstrous post-level 8 Celeste that we all know and love. The range on her Heliogenesis makes her incredibly difficult to deal with as Tyra's starting to slam down those Malice. But whoa, Cavalify, baby, where are you going?
He goes straight on in. The Divine Intervention immediately popped on top of him to give him that damage reduction, but he is taking a lot of damage on the backline. Impale onto Hegman. Hegman should fall to the Solar Storm, and he does. Now SK have lost their captain here, and Mouse are charging forward. The Weapon Power Pedal hasn't found its mark just yet for SK, and I know that Physics has worked with SK in the past, has done a lot of work with the team, knows the players very well. Tyra's and her are on fairly good standings. Here comes the Oblivion, will be blocked. Feels like almost a bait in the draft has come out from Mouse here. They've really drafted a protect a Celeste composition, which into a Weapon Power Petal is very, you know, very effective.
Well, yeah, Bright Bulwark stops areas that you can use. Trampoline, Lance, traditionally pretty good against Petal because you can keep her locked down as well. I just think the Lance was good, and I think a lot of people have been saying, oh, Physics has been practicing Lance, you know, so it was a bit of a bait in terms of that respect. I know, Dalsy, you said if Physics plays Lance, this probably won't be the best game, but she probably knew that as well, and that's why that bait came through for Justman getting hold of the Lance, and I'm the Doom coming through on this Celeste. You know, like we said, he's one of the guys that if I were to pick someone to hyper carry for me, I'm the Doom would be definitely up the top of my list. And whilst the CP Interest game, he showed some flickers of being able to do so, it's getting much more done on this Celeste game.
Another Solar Storm will come through, this time not quite finding a kill. Oblivion going to be dodged away by Mouse, and a minion candy immediately pops down by the side of Mouse here. Lyra here, Physics has played a ridiculous amount of Lyra over her, I guess, Vainglory lifetime. Known, I guess, for playing Lyra and Adagio, these healing type heroes. Makes a lot of sense that she brings it onto the competitive stage here. Was a draft that felt so predictable to myself and you who know people like Physics, but perhaps it's a little bit hard to read it. Justman diving on in. There's going to be Mouse now disengaging with the Fountain. I'm the Doom still has a lot of Heliogenesis on the battleground that he can pop here, turn Supernova. SK have to be careful. There's going to be Solar Storm coming through. They've taken down one. Hegman goes out. Tyra's escapes, but I don't think Cavalify can. He should fall as well. Another kill goes on to I'm the Doom. 5-0 and 1. And Mouse should start up this gold miner.
Yeah, they'll be able to get that pretty easily here. The amount of sustain that the Mousesports lineup have in their back pocket is pretty incredible. And you could see there, I mean, unless we need to see Weapon Power Petal at her 4 items, I think, at this point. You're just not seeing the burst damage. The Weapon Power Petal is picked to positionally gain advantage on the Celeste and take her out in a team fight. Haven't seen Cavalify been able to do that because essentially you've got this protective shell that Mouse have formed around Anna Doom, making it, like we said, almost impossible to find an opening. And even if there is, suddenly Justman gets in the way, the Githian Wall comes out, Physics is there with the Bright Bulwark and the heal. Anna Doom feels sort of wrapped in insulation right now, and it doesn't. I just don't think the damage is there from this SK composition to break through that front line and actually start to threaten Anna Doom.
So talk to me about this minion candy priority that we see Physics investing so much into. So far, it's been great against this Samuel. Maybe we'll talk about it in a bit later because Justman just found a huge impale onto Tyra's. I'm the Doom, missing a core collapse, but that Solar Storm will rip through and takes out the Samuel God himself. Now Mouse pushing into the jungle here to try and get more. Oh, great impale onto Cavalifar, but I'm not sure they can chase him. Instead, the Crystal Sentry will be their prize.
Yeah, Justman has been setting up some of these fights really, really well. I'm the Doom has been converting. He's got the 4-item CP Celeste build right now. Mousesports, I think, are favored to win this game from this point forward. I think we both came out of draft doubting. We said this is the game that Mousesports could take away from SK, and you're actually starting to see some weaknesses. Cavalifar double tornado trigger. You know, you put him onto something a little bit more uncomfortable for him. He doesn't seem to be able to pilot it the same way that he would the Idris, the Lance, or the Black Feather. Tyrus has not got those same early advantages, and Justman goes in again.
Yeah, he's going to get knocked up here, stunned. He may be in a bit of trouble. The healing comes out from the Sigil. Mouse are going to be okay for now. In fact, they're going to be more than okay. SK going to lose Tyrants once more. Cavalifar threatened, manages to get out of the core collapse. Mouse going very low. Doom almost falls to this weapon power pedal, but won't quite go down. Another minion candy onto this lane so that Mouse can disengage safely. They're playing very adventurous here. A Kraken to be started up. That is a very tasty treat if Mouse can pull it off. Iris is dead for another 7 seconds, and SK with the minion candy look like they're just going to push in and try and get some global gold from the turret instead. There's going to be that turret falling. It is 600 gold going over to the side of SK. Mouse, though, getting a Kraken.
Yeah, I think I'd take Kraken for a singular turret that was close to death anyway, and now that Kraken is going to start to push down the lane. A very quick, decisive move from Mouse, and especially given in the proximity of the SK lineup, I got to commend the decision-making there, probably coming from Physics herself. I think she's got a lot of game knowledge and game sense, and she brings that to the table here for Mouse, especially in-game where coaches often don't get the same level of role. To actually have your coach play at your level and perform with you at that level and have that in-game shot calling role has obviously been a boon for Mouse during this game. As the siege opening up, that post-level 8 siege of Celeste is always so difficult to deal with. Cavalifar actually forced to use the reflex block there. They're doing their best to clear this Kraken. I don't think they want to fight. They think they just want to focus on clearing the Kraken as a primary directive.
Yeah, and Mouse will be able to easily take down this choke point turret, but that might be where they halt their aggression. I love that before this game started, Excalibur, Araki, Zoro drew our attention to the heroes that Cavalifar has been playing here on the autumn season. Idris, Lance, and Black Feather, the 3 heroes, the only 3 he's played so far competitively in the autumn season. This is the 4th being a weapon power petal. Mouse have dealt with this 4th pick well. They have to close out, and this is something that they have struggled to do so this season. SK, however, have been experts of closing games when they have the opportunity to. And so this is where things are the toughest for Mouse, is to keep their aggression up and not lose the sight.
Didn't quite clear that scout trap out there. Tyrus really need Broken Myth, I think, before SK can even mount some kind of competitive defense in these team fights. He needs to be able to keep up with Celeste in terms of ability damage. A lot of gold being donated over to Cavalifar, though, still trying to accelerate him towards his 4-item weapon power build. I imagine his last one will be a Tyrant's Monocle. I don't imagine we're going to see triple tornado trigger on the petal, but you never know. I've been wrong before. Tyra's a little bit, about 300 gold away from that Broken Myth now, Dowsey.
I believe 3 Tyrants triple tornado triggers just is inefficient at that point. And so you're still going to get the 100% crit, I believe, from the Tyrant's Monocle. So just go for it. And you'll have a bit of extra weapon power as well. So,
yeah, I think you're also pushing the limits of attack speed as well if you go triple tornado trigger.
Yeah, there is a cap. Elimination onto the Crystal Sentry there. Mouse have found a jungle open, and oh, they found Cavalifar as well. I'm the Doom trying to get in position to lay down hurt. Is going to be Justman taken down very low. Fountain will come out to keep him alive. I'm the Doom putting down the damage. Solar Storm will go down. Cavalifar will be bursted. Eggman finds a great double Holy Nova, but it's not going to be enough to keep Cavalifar alive. And Mouse with the Kraken respawning may just turn their attention to the beast and look to push on into SK's base a second time.
Yeah, and this will be the one for them to try and push in and take the game, you would feel, Dalsy. Kvalifar made a very interesting move there in that fight. You know, he took a very aggressive standpoint. He had the divine intervention from Hegman coming out, who, by the way, has not got Echo. In the limitations of... He's actually picked up
double
two
boots.
Yeah, not got Echo. I think Echo would have been a really sort of a big breaking point for this SK composition. I think that would have kept Kvalifar fighting in these engages a little bit better. But Kvalifar's playing these fights like he has a breaking point, like he's attacking the tanky big targets. He's not actually finding his way to End the Doom. I genuinely think breaking point might have been a suitable adaptation to this, but because at least then it allows you to start to get through these heavy armor builds, you know, especially with Justman now having the light armor and the Atlas Pauldrons in tow. But instead he's got the full critical strike, and he was sat there attacking Justman that entire fight. He didn't find that backline pressure onto the End the Doom, and it was a bit of a mistake there.
Well, he's going to attempt again. Oblivion's going to go out, but it's blocked on up. Here comes SK, looking to try and find it. A double impale blocked. But a Solar Storm will find two. Divine Intervention to heal Kvalifar up. Physics going to trap Hegman down as the Kraken will do work to this first turret. And a great impale onto Kvalifar will root him. Tyra's looking to get some Malice and Verdicts onto the backline. Justman going very low. This might be it for SK to find a team fight win. End the Doom will go down. Justman it's a double for Kvalifar. And Physics will be the last woman standing. Will go down. An ace for SK, but they will lose their Vein Crystal turrets.
Yes, and suddenly with Lyra and everything else on this Mouse roster, you will have to start to worry about keeping up that vision control around your own base. The Echo has been finished for Hegman now, but he doesn't have any scout traps in tow, so this is going to have to be a very well-balanced end of the game for SK if they want to mount a comeback here, because at one wrong foot and you lose your base to a backdoor, it's a very real possibility with the Lyra portal. And admittedly, you have to commit more than one member to make that happen, so SK should usually be aware of it, but it's something that will be playing in the back of the minds of SK now, and some mind games can really come in to affect you at this stage of the game, down.
Certainly can. Kvalifar, like you mentioned, he's playing this Weapon Power Petal actually like he played Weapon Power Sky, so a correction there on my half. He has actually played Weapon Power Sky this update as well, and it was a Sora Blade double Tornado Trigger breaking point build. So, you know, kind of playing it a bit like that. Was very happy to stack up on the tankiest member and then Series Strike onto a much squishier one and blow them up in a couple of auto attacks. This time the Tyrant's Monocle is there for Kvalifar. Could be the missing component for this Petal to have more consistent team fighting prowess for SK. They've won one team fight in the late game, perhaps due to Mouse's poor positioning. We'll have to see if they can do the same. It's very easy to position poorly in the base. Such wide open area for people to flank you, and Tyros was getting so many Malice and Verdicts onto the backline. Here we go, another fight. That's a great core collapse onto Kvalifar. He gets roosted up immediately. End the Doom looking to trying to stack up. They're trying to disengage. Double Impale will go out. Oblivion puts Physics to sleep. She needs to wake up so she can put the fountain out. It needs to come out soon, and it will.
Oh, Doom's dead! Doom's dead!
Doom, they've done two. Mouse may just lose everyone at this point. Justman has to run. He has to try and make a play. SK there, Vein Crystal is open, and so they will send two to deal with Justman. He's going to pop his boots and run. At this point for Tyros, you feel he has to just backport. Justman can roll through that wall, and there's the backport coming through. Kvalifar going to take down the choke point turret. It is going to be Justman looking to try and run away, but there it is. A Holy Nova locks him down, and Tyros should be able to finish him on up. The ace is there for SK, and a Kraken is ready to be taken.
And actually, even though that bought time for Mouse, the staggering of the depth timers is probably the worst thing in the world if you're Mousesports right now, because it's essentially a free Kraken pending an insane Celeste steal. And then you still have to wait for Justman to respawn to help defend
He's
against
going for it. Solar Storm's coming. They've stopped it.
Blocking.
Oh, I love this from SK. So clever.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
So clever. Just, you know what? He's spawned. If he's going to throw a Solar Storm, it's going to be now. Let's just stop attacking the Kraken and see if it comes through.
So major breakpoints picked up for SK, by the way. Tyrus has got that broken myth. Like you said, the Tyrant's Monocle now there for Kvalifar. Some of these, small additions to their itemization has allowed them to contend against this hyper carry composition. And you can see Justman is built like kind of like a captain, but without the good captain bits. he's just got a Sorrow Blade, and everything else right there is. Yeah, he just sold an item and picked up some extra shielding. Essentially, he's being a tank, but he's not a very threatening tank, and he doesn't have the extra bits like the Fountain and the Crucible and so on. That's a big catch.
Impale to Cavalifar. Maybe they can pick him up here. I'm the Doom's trying to do his best, but his split focus from Mouse is hurting them. I'm the Doom will go very low. The first Vein Crystal turret is under siege, and that minefield of Heliogenesis has been avoided by SK. Kraken, so healthy. Mouse need to find a fight, win here. They can't afford not to. Tyrus will get impaled, but Cavalifar's onto the turret, and the turret's dropping so quickly. It's going to go down. There's the Oblivion going onto the Vein Crystal, blocked up. Cavalifar may get taken on down, but the Vein Crystal will go as well. SK find a window of opportunity, and they strike true Scoundrel 2-0 over Mouse.
Heartbreak for Mouse, because it looked so good for them in that game. You wanted them to pull a victory out, to make this series more interesting, if not even, somehow take the series off our European champions, as it feels like. SK, though, they hit those picking points in the late game, like we said, Dalsy. Once the Tyrant's Monocle came out, you actually started to hit that front line a bit harder. This is akin to that Weapon Power Kestrel build where you just hit like a truck regardless of how much armor the enemy has. Tyrus, they broke a myth, a massive input for him. You saw, even with those Drifting Darks and Malice of Verdicts, he was providing such an insane damage threat even in the late game. And just looking at Justman's build, I mean, it was like a full tank build. It didn't. I would have preferred to see him go a little bit like he did last game, Dalsy, with an addition of a Fountain, addition of an extra Crucible, and if you're trying to play full Protect the Hyper Carry, why not go all in on full Protect the Hyper Carry?
Yeah, well, I'm sure that our desk are eager to give their thoughts as well, Scoundrel. 2-0 victory to SK, so let's hear from them.
It certainly is a 2-0 victory going over to SK Gaming in the end. A heartbreaking defeat for Mousesports. They had such a great start. It was so close to beautiful. They even were pushing in towards what would have been the end of the game, but snatched away from them by SK. What happened?
I mean, it's tough to say because they had such a dominant lead. This was a game that they absolutely should have been able to win, should have been able to close out, but this is something we see all too frequently of a team just getting a big lead and not being able to seal the deal.
I mean, also what happened, it was just a great draft because now that they only denied Cavalifar his best heroes by taking away Blackfeather, the Idris, and then the Lance, and also taking the Lance away from Hegman, but they had a great comp working for themselves. A lot of teams, when they've tried to deny a laner or a player on the enemy team, they forget to get a good comp for themselves, but Mouse had a great comp, and the Lyra last pick also made sure to sustain them off against the Grace and equalize that sustained battle. So it was just a great draft coming out of Mousesports, and that's why they were able to get such a huge lead mid-game.
Yeah, and let's take a look at a couple of the replays that led them to that lead. The first one around 13 minutes on into the game. This is where they started to pressure the miner and started to really take control of this early game.
Yeah, and this was before Cavalifar really had enough damage in his build to be able to be a massive threat. You can see him on the backside trying to put damage out, but just not doing anywhere near enough. His damage numbers were just too low compared to what the side of Mousesports had and the amount of sustain that Mousesports had. But this lead was able to come around because they took advantage of the item spikes that they achieved and had this timing where, SK was in the middle of like halfway through items.
Yeah, absolutely. And off the back of that one, they managed to take the Crystal Sentry. They managed to turn that into more, but then they managed to turn that into a Kraken just a few minutes later on into the game around the 19-minute mark.
This is another great team fight, and this time they're fighting in a choke point, so the Lance was able to land the root, and it's just you see the Petal trying to dive. So this was SK's win condition, trying to get on Celeste or Lance, chase them away and kill them before they can back away and sustain off with Lyra. And the thing is, because Hegman chose to go for a Crucible rather than a Echo early on, they weren't able to do that because they couldn't have two heals. That team fight, they did have the two heals, but it was still not enough, just because when you try to dive and kill a hero, you can't do it with two backline heroes like the Petal and the Samuel until very late game, until you have the damage that you can do it with. And that's why SK weren't winning the team fights mid-game.
And then once we got a little bit later on into the game, we did start to see them winning these team fights. We have a replay of one happened around 22 minutes into the game. This is once these items had started to come through and SK started to get control themselves.
Yeah, and again, a thing you have to point out, and something that Scoundrel was talking about a lot, was the build from Justman. Very tanky, very durable as a frontliner. But SK, they just said, okay, we're just going to focus on everyone else. Like, we don't need to worry about this Lance because he has the Impale and the Githian Wall at the start of the fight, but then he's nothing. Like, he only has a Sorrow Blade for damage and the base numbers, so he wasn't enough of a threat, and he wasn't enough of a tank because he kind of went for this sort of like half and half build, and just when you're going to be this big frontline tank in these long drawn out fights, you need to be a threat to your opponents in order for them to have a reason to focus you.
Yeah, and let's take a look at the final fight that happened in that game as well, as SK managed to kind of put the final nail in the coffin and round this one out 2-0.
At this point, because the Kraken is already pushing, and it's very hard for Mousesports to defend it because they have to choose to either focus the Kraken or focus SK, the idea is that Mousesports started forgetting that they needed to keep their distance from SK. Celeste and Lyra don't have any armor, so if Penel gets on either one, especially after she picked up her last offensive item, which is the Tyrant Monocle, she had 100% crit chance. So whoever she was focusing that didn't have any armor was getting melted. So Mousesports needed to make sure that they kept their distance and used their sustain advantage with Lyra, which they did so well, but then they just forgot to do.
Man, I also really like the positioning of SK in that last fight. You saw a really nice minefield get set up by On the Doom with those Helios, and SK just rotate completely around it and avoid. There was 5 or 6 Helios that were on the ground ready to be exploded, and SK just completely avoided the entire area and said, you know, you've got that work prepped. It's meaningless.
And that's exactly what we've been talking about with SK. They understand the win conditions of the fights. It's not just their own, but they understand their opponent's win conditions and play around that in these fights. Now, we have an interview lined up with Tyrus from SK Gaming, fresh off of that victory. Welcome to the stream, Tyrus. Congratulations on that victory. And, I mean, you guys must be feeling pretty over the moon after 2 pretty tough games there.
Yeah, it was actually really closer than expected. I'm actually, despite being on paper, it's 2-0, but I'm actually pretty disappointed. We could have done way better, but if we want to continue our streak tomorrow, we really need to step up again and continue playing together as a team.
Yeah, I mean, I have to ask you kind of what happened in that series, because as you rightly say, going into this one, you were the clear favourites. You did get the 2-0 in the end, but they were much closer games than I think anyone was expecting.
Yeah, I think the main issue was just that we didn't communicate with each other very well, and on the other side, we might have taken it a little bit too lightly, the matchup we were against, considering that they were not playing as a main roster and having some issues within each other. Well, I think that's it.
Now, last week we saw the weapon pedal become a pretty prominent feature in North America, and now you guys have picked it up. Is this something that you guys have been working on, or is it just you saw it come out in North America and you immediately began working on it and adapted to just what you've seen in other regions?
I mean, we saw the weapon pedal in North America, and we hate Cloud9 for doing this pick, for practicing this pick and bringing it to Europe. It's really annoying to play against, but I mean, it's working out. It has definitely some strength and not some. I mean, it's basically, in my opinion, Vox on steroids. Way longer range, attack speed buff, bonus, everything. So it's annoying to play against. So we just took it for ourselves.
Well, I've got to say, from my recent solo queue games, I totally share your opinion on Weapon Power Belt. Thank you very much for the interview, Tyrus, and congratulations on your victory for that one. But that means that is going to bring our first series of the day to a close. So our MVP for that series is going to be Kevalafar off the back of that one. Exceptional play. Obviously, we've just been talking about the Weapon Power Petal. He used it to perfection in this series.
Yeah, really strong play on both the pedal and the Black Feather, especially in game number 1. And again, this is another one of those situations where we're sitting here, we trying to decide who the MVP is, and it's like it could go to any of them. Like, they're all playing just so well as a unit. You look at their kill participation across the board. That last game, I believe it was 6, 6, and 5 in a 7-kill game. It's just they're always together and they're always making plays at the same time.
I mean, they won today, but going forward, especially when they go up against teams such as G2 and Fnatic and the better teams in the region, they have to really cover their weaknesses. It's really showing the pattern and their drafts. Kevalafar, while he's a great player, his hero pool is not that great. And if they don't figure a solution to the fact that he doesn't have a big hero pool, other teams can punish them.
Yeah, we saw that last season with Mousesports. We'll see if that's going to happen this season. But they've made it to the semi-finals, and that's what matters for now. But it's time to jump into our second series of the day. We have Calamity